Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Leaders in Supply Chain and Logistics podcast. I'm your host, Stéphanie Moles-Rota, Managing Director of AkzoNobel Global, Benelux and France. So, welcome to the podcast of AkzoNobel, where we have the pleasure today to speak to Karen-Marie Katholm. Karen-Marie is Chief Integrated Supply Chain and Board Member of AkzoNobel. She joined in 2021. She has been more than 20 years in the business in very different industries, from food manufacturing to chemicals today. Karen-Marie is Danish. She has lived in many European countries, and we're very lucky to have her in Amsterdam, and also to have her for one of our very last podcasts of 2024. So, Karen-Marie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the introduction. Just a small correction. I'm the Chief Integrated Supply Chain Officer in AkzoNobel, and I'm a member of our executive committee. Then we have that straightened out. But really nice to be here today.
Thank you, Karen-Marie. And as we are talking about your career, what were some of the key inflection points in your career that made you who you are today?
So one of those areas where I would normally myself describe it, that I've been standing at a bit of a career crossroad and, had considerations. Should I turn right or should I turn left? And to give you a concrete example, then I actually began working early career in procurement, which was actually a very deliberate choice. I'd been studying engineering and also been doing quite some marketing and commercial studying as part of the engineering program, which I found very helpful, very insightful, in addition to all the technical parts and, let's say, the math and the fish and all of that. But I was really missing when putting a price or a cost to a given product, whether it's a service or a tangible product. I was kind of like really keen to understand what are the underlying components. I mean, what does a mobile phone, as an example, consist of? It consists of all kind of different components, all kind of different raw materials, whether it's plastic, metal, etc. So I was really curious as to how is all that built? How does it all fit together? And that actually brought me to procurement after I graduated. And there I really learned at a very granular level. What about commodity raw materials? Where do you source products from? Is it very manual labor intensive? Is it more, automated process you're dealing with? It also brought me very early career to shop floor in many of our suppliers, but also in the companies where I was working. Because again, when you're working in procurement, you also have that contact, and also with quality, for sure, very early career. But then at some point in time, after having worked quite some years in procurement, I went through a leadership assessment in the company where I worked back then. And it was with an external provider, and lots of assessments, lots of interviewing, lots of testing. And then they actually brought me to one of the first moments where I was standing at this crossroad, and where they said, look, if you go to the left, you have a great career in front of you. You will remain in procurement. You can go to even larger companies, even more global companies. So that is for sure one way. You can also look more broadly into end-to-end supply chain, because you really come with a great engineering background. You have the procurement insight after quite some years, both into direct materials and also indirect. And then they said to me, the different touch points in relation to the suppliers, in relation to manufacturing, in relation to logistics, in relation to quality. So you can also try to stretch yourself there. And I for sure gave that some thought and processed. And then I think, as you'll probably also see when looking through my career, that I've never really been shy of getting myself into new challenges. And over time, that's probably part of the DNA. And I then decided, after some, let's call it due diligence with myself, that, okay, let me give it a go into broader supply chain. So I did, and I must admit, I never ever regretted making that move, because what happened was then I changed industry, came into another company, began going much more into end-to-end supply chain, and when I look back in time, the one who replaced me as the CPO for the company I was working back then was still sitting there for the coming 10 years as a CPO. And meanwhile, for me, those 10 years were absolutely a complete game changer for having gone from procurement into much broader end-to-end supply chain. So it was one of those moments, one of those career crossroads.
I love it. I love it. Jumping in the deep, not shying away of a new challenge and taking the right turn, even though the
Yeah,
left one would have been the most comfortable one, right? But
that's also true.
yeah,
Absolutely. But
yeah,
sometimes you have to get out of the comfort zone. And that was at least one of those moments, no doubt.
very nice. So, in terms of practical case studies in your career, because you have been a senior professional for many years, what are some of the really important challenges you've had overcome, and maybe give us a few examples?
Mm. There's obviously after many years in business life, there's many examples to share. So I'll select a couple of different examples, a couple of different case studies. So one is that I've tried a couple of times actually to come into to a company, work in a given area and context, head up a team. And then I've tried actually 2 times during my career to become the leader of, let's say, former colleagues at same level. And that is a different challenge. That's a different dimension for sure, due to many different reasons. One, when getting into such a context, you for sure may come across somebody who had thought to be the next future leader of the team, and here comes suddenly one from the outside, and how on earth is that then possible? And then secondly, then also managing your former peers. That is a different challenge, but I would say in both cases there has been fantastic support by the former team members, by the peers, but for sure it has also from my side been with some hesitation as to from having been one of the peers, one of the team members, then suddenly being the one now managing. How on earth is that also going to work? But has actually been quite welcomed and quite positive in both cases. So that's one of the case studies. Then also another case study is also organizational design related, where I've now a couple of times in my career really rebuilt organizations and really tried to be much more oriented towards, let's say, the market backward perspective, to make sure that there's a strong link between an integrated supply chain organization and also commercial, because I think that's also quite critical. And also to build organizations that are very customer minded, that are very market oriented. So really bring some of the commercial savviness also into an integrated supply chain context. That's been a couple of studies. Then I would also maybe raise a third one to share. That is, have also embarked on a transformation journey a couple of times, where really also getting inspiration from industries that have been leading the way in certain areas. Digitalization is one of the examples that I can share, where in the first case, it was really going outside the industry I worked in back then, getting some inspiration from completely different industries, taking it back, building the narrative in the context industry we're operating, translating it if you wish, and then get going to establish a few lighthouses. That has also been fantastic. And the reason why I'm sharing that one is sometimes you really have to be open-minded, go outside your own industry, your own context, get some, best practices, and then be able to bring it home, but translate it and put it into a meaningful context.
Do you find the time to go out and get those inspiration? Do you share best practices with colleagues and peers to get those outside the box ideas, like the digitalization?
So I used to do lots of networking, actually, more early career, I would say, where I was sitting in on different teams that really were quite open, exchanging obviously non confidential information, but really, lots of networking. I also used to attend conferences more early career, a whole lot more. Yeah. Then also after some years, then we have also kind of all been locked in for quite a while during some years with COVID. So I haven't been so active there, but still very much reading literature, reading articles, following up on what's happening out in different industries. And one of the things that I've also kind of done as a deliberate choice is I've been doing board work for many, many years. And that has always been in industries that are different from my day job.
Excellent.
Due to very good reasons like, don't go into a competitive situation. That's a no-go. Also with suppliers, no. Also not with customers, no. So that has really given inspiration from a number of different industries. And again, learning from those industries, but also contributing, obviously, as being a board member, that has been very helpful. So that has been what I've been doing part of the journey as well.
Super, yes. And we see a very big trend of having board members, non-executive board member that are actually actively in their career now. I think both sides, that helps you in your current job, but vice versa.
Sure.
The company has somebody very fresh in the role that knows exactly what they're talking about. So
Yeah.
very inspirational. Coming back to one of the questions, because I'm curious, one of the first points you mentioned is leading your peers, including some people, obviously, who were hoping to get the same job. So what is it that made you successful? What did you do? What type of leadership skills did you have to use to make that a success?
I think I would say overall, at least over many years, I've really been practicing, situational leadership, coming in, listening, understanding, what is working, what is not working. Never really pretending to come into a company or into a context where I would, know everything and have all the answers, because that's not how it has worked. So I think that also, is critical to then having built the respect and the confidence with the team members, taking the time to get up on, let's call it, the learning curve. And I think then also really trying to be the natural leader of the team. That is also critical, that you have the confidence, that you have the respect, that there is an open environment. And I think I would say, when looking back, and again when talking with former team members, that has been very helpful in those particular situations. But also not really jumping in, if we're talking about the 2 times where I picked up a role, being, the leader of my peers, also being very collaborative, but also having very clear expectations. But again, never jump into constantly providing all the answers, for sure not. So I think that I would say that that's probably been part of what I've done.
So the right balance between, on one hand, coming in, learning, not coming in as I know it all, but still being pretty confident I'm the leader of the team, and that's where we need to go together in a collaborative manner.
Yeah, I would say so. I think absolutely, if you were to check in with some of my former colleagues, that would probably also be how they would describe it.
I love it. Again, great learning. So another area that is really very important in your leadership journey today and in many companies is the sustainability topic. Anything you can share with us on things that are happening or you're working on, probably together with other in the industry, to make the world a more sustainable place?
Yeah, absolutely, I can do that. So we as a company, we as AkzoNobel, we were amongst the first movers, the early movers, if you wish, around putting out science-based targets. And for sure, it's super challenging. And we are also looking into scope 1, 2, and 3. Our reality is actually that our own asset is the smaller part out of the totality. But that does not mean that we are not working hard in all shapes and forms. So as an example, we have been investing over time in adding solar panels to a lot of our manufacturing sites. We are also, when we are making new asset investments, having absolutely as clear, let's say, a line item on our investment checklist that, hey, what is kind of energy consumption, etc., etc. So that also has a play. We are also looking into generally how we can reduce our consumption, and that's actually when it's electricity or natural gas or even water that we also consume. So really trying to put all kind of different measures in place, and also engaging the broader, let's say, population of the company. Because we can all make a contribution here, by the way. So in some of our sites, in the warehouses, as an example, lights used to be on, Now it's like, okay, if there's no activity there, it would split off. We have put LED lights in place, etc. So again, everybody can do something. We used to have the copying machines in the offices, being turned on pretty much 24/7. Okay, now somebody needs to make sure that they are switched off. The same with the light, etc. So really, we have been rallying a lot across our own organization, constantly, campaigning, constantly keeping it alive. So that's kind of our own part, and we are very well on our way there to achieve our target. When I then look into the other two scopes, then from a raw material perspective, we are for sure challenged. We are for sure closely collaborating with a number of our suppliers. Reality is that some of the raw materials we use and that we need in our formulation and our recipes, they are very energy consuming. So there we are for sure trying together with suppliers to find ways of, hey, how can we also support them in reducing some of their energy so that they can also send products to us that are less CO2 impactful. Also similar with our customers, we are doing collaborative innovation, co-creating. We are working with our customers to find ways with our product innovation. How can we reduce, curing temperatures or processing time overall with our customers? That comes at a benefit, obviously, because it also reduces cost typically for them, but also it for sure has an impact on less emissions. So lots of different activities going on across both scope 1, 2, and 3. We have a dedicated sustainability department. I think that's really required. That's a bit of a prerequisite because they really keep us all, let's say, straight. They make sure that we are executing in commercial with our customers, in procurement with the suppliers, and in integrated supply chain with our own manufacturing asset. So that's how we have gotten that organized, and that's how we're working through it. But for sure, it is quite a heavy lift, no doubt about that.
It's a heavy lift, and it's something that no organization can do just by themselves. So
Correct.
one thing
Correct.
has become very clear, I think, in the past years is that unless suppliers work together, even competitors work together, customer works with their suppliers, we will not manage to make a success. And I see so many amazing examples of full organization working together side by side, even though they're competitors, to make a difference.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that whole collaborative environment that you're describing, that makes a lot of sense. I also see more and more companies out there, no matter where you are in the value chain, but they're also beginning to, let's say, lower their barriers in the realization that not a single company can actually manage this. So I think we have to think along the lines of even more co-creation between customers, us as a supplier, but also our vendors.
Right.
We really think along those networks. That is how we will achieve, because otherwise, again, nobody can do this in isolation.
No.
Fully agree.
No. Now, coming to a topic I love, which is the topic of diversity. And obviously, you're one of the few women I'm very blessed to interview today. It doesn't happen that often that you get a leader, a female leader in that industry at your level. So what are some of the things that you've learned and that you think is worth sharing with our audience on the topic of being a female leader at C-level?
Right. I think no matter gender, then actually building the collaborative environments, that is very critical. And also, let's say, making sure that fostering that, because it does not always come natural, and it's for sure not a given. And in my view, what makes us all stronger is actually the diverse perspectives. And then, let's say, from a gender area specifically, I would say I really believe that we bring something differently to the table, whether it's gender or whether it's cultural, like national diversity. I think really diversity of thought, that is super critical. And you also see lots of reports, lots of data actually showing that those companies typically doing best. That's also where they have a good diverse population, let's say at all different levels. We also have examples where we had really not had female plant managers in a given site, and then the first female plant manager is joining, and that also begins to to give different perspectives and insights and a different, let's say, collaborative environment. We even now have some shifts in some of our sites where it's all females working in a given shift. Again, I think the combination is very super, very, very helpful. By the way, actually, as a matter of fact, tomorrow I'll be joining, let's say, one of the forums we have in AkzoNobel. We have something we call WIN, and that is where we have both females and also, let's say, male colleagues being invited to also hear, how have different careers developed, how has been the challenges, how have you overcome, etc., etc. So we also have that as a focus area in our company. I'll also never forget the early days after I joined Akzo. I mean, we should also not, as an employer, be surprised. In all honesty, why can we not attract more female colleagues? If, as an example, in our manufacturing site, we don't have separate locker rooms. I mean, okay, surprise, then that probably explains why we cannot attract. So we also have to be mindful of that. And again, make some of the boundary conditions in place, because then it begins happening. And once you typically have the first, joining, then others will also be more confident to follow. Because obviously when you go into a new company, you also look for, hey, is this a place where I can see myself work? Or would I rather do it somewhere else? So lots of different things that have been done, but also many things still to be done, for sure. So we really have a Looks and Pride program where we are also having that as part of our focus. And for sure, diversity and inclusion, that is top of mind.
And diversity, as you say, is much broader than just gender. And if you think about even religion, talking about manufacturing and possibilities to pray in some manufacturing sites. As you said, the lockers, there's plenty of things. And diversity of education. Do we give a chance to someone who hasn't done the same education to grow up the ladder? So thanks for sharing. And we need more women like you to show the way, because tokenism is also an important way to improve diversity. So if you're not the only one, if I can look at you as a role model and think, okay, if she has done it, maybe there's a chance for me, I think it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I do see more and more females also coming into leadership roles, and that has also changed over the past, or let's say, recent years. I do also see, let's say, more and more females also in board context, but that is for sure still the area where there's work to be done as we move forward, no doubt.
So we're coming close to the end of our podcast, and one of my favorite question is, what would be your advice to your younger self? So young Karen-Marie coming into the work life, fresh graduate. What is it when you're looking at your young self you would tell yourself?
So lots of learning. So always nice to let's say, be going back in time. Really, one of the things I would tell myself is, don't stay around forever after in the same context. I mean, widen your horizons. Try out different functional areas. Try out different industries. Try out also different ownerships of companies, which for sure I have also been doing. But that has been great learnings, if you have the aspirations at least. There are big differences whether you're in a privately owned company, or if you're in a cooperative company, or if you work in a listed company, where there's like the quarterly exam you have to pass, and also the different functional areas. I have seen that to be a real strength, because as also going into an executive position, but also in a board context, really having that end-to-end perspective is very helpful. Again, don't try to be an expert into all areas and then, miserably fail. But at least also understand how is it working in other areas. What does a P&L mean, as an example? Again, you don't need to be the finance expert to understand it, but at least understand. And also when you are in an integrated supply chain function, as I am and have been in for many years, really also be mindful about What is the go-to-market model? How do we collaborate with customers? What is the competitive landscape looking like? So don't get yourself into a situation where you only focus in, narrow-minded on, hey, this is the job I'm doing, this is the function I'm in. You really have to, open up as to, hey, how does it all work and fit together? That would for sure be some of the things that I would give early career as advice. And then also, back to the career crossroad, sometimes also dare not to go for, the obvious choice. Don't stay in the comfort zone. It may feel uncomfortable at times, for sure, that you have decided to go to another area that you are not yet fully, prepared for, but sometimes for the benefit of doubt. And then I would also say to early career, mentoring, sponsoring is also important, and I'll go for that. I have had the pleasure and privilege of having that for many years, has been very helpful. And I'll never forget when I got it offered by one of my previous bosses that I've been working for a couple of months. It was an American boss. And then one day he called me out of the blue, completely caught me by surprise, and said, I'm going to give you an external coach. And kind of what I was saying was, really, am I doing that badly that I need, a coach? And he was just like laughing and saying, no, Karen-Marie, you know what? We only do this for a very selected few in the company. You should see that as, an investment in you, and we want to develop and grow you. And I was just like super skeptical, and then I was beginning to like, okay, let me then try it and test it out. And that was really one of the best things ever. But I really thought that I was just like, okay, I'm going to get a coach now because I'm not doing my job. So again, sometimes be open-minded to it and then really take it as a gift. But also yourself to be mentoring or sponsoring. I would also say that would also be very beneficial. And then again, networking, I would say that's also super critical. We have like a global engineering trainee program, a GET program in Akzo, and it's always a real pleasure for me to see how many of those early career individuals, they stay connected because they meet each other later on in different contexts. So the networking, whether it's inside your company or whether it's outside, time will tell, but that has really also played a fantastic role in my career. And then also the last thing I would say is you need to be spotted from time to time by some of your bosses. You need to be given sometimes those unique opportunities, especially when you're in one company and moving from one functional area to another. That is very important. So again, have the good open dialogue. Don't sit yourself down saying, hey, look, now I'm going to make my career plan for the next 25 years and I know exactly what I'm going to do year 1 and year 3 and do. That's normally not how it works. I'm still a believer in having a career plan, but more about how do you prepare yourself. If you are keen to go into another functional area, begin preparing yourself and get that into your backpack, because it doesn't come on its own, obviously. So yes, there'll be some steep mountains to climb, and yes, you will have to go to different base camps to prepare yourself for either lateral moves or, let's say, next level moves. But that would be some of the advice I would give to early career.
Very, very nice. So getting out of your comfort zone, as you mentioned earlier, taking the right turn, even though the left would be more comfortable, getting mentors, being a mentor, external networking. I also love what you said about having been given the opportunity by a former boss. I think we sometimes forget to say or to recognize how much luck could be part of a career, right? We create our own luck, yes, but sometimes there's also people out there that just, can give us a little bit of a head start and make it easier for ourselves.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Karen-Marie. I know this is a very busy season. November is one of the most busy months of the year, right? So thank you for taking the time to talking to us. It is podcast number 199, so it's actually a very special podcast for us. And I cannot wait for our listener to join us and share all the learnings that you've discussed today with me.
Thank you very much, Stéphanie, for giving the opportunity and for taking the time to talk with me today. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you like what you heard,
be sure to go to www.alcottglobal.com and click the podcast button for all the show notes of the interview. Also, subscribe to our mailing list to get our latest update first. If you're listening to a streaming platform like iTunes or Spotify, we would appreciate the kind review. 5-star works best to keep us going and our production team happy, and of course share it with your friends. I'm most active on LinkedIn, so do feel free to follow me, and if you have any suggestions on what to do or who to invite next, don't hesitate to drop me a note. And if you're looking to hire top executives or transform your business, of course contact us as well to find out how we can help.